Hey everyone, my name's Fastus. I just thought, since a few people are asking and I've finally reached stage 1 of my project, I thought I'd do a little video just talking about where I've gotten to and where I'm going. This is a Farmville style game with a little bit more more concentration on the RPG, the combat, more than some of the others would have, and also I wanted to be a bit more complex with the characters, the villagers, and their interactions between each other. So it wasn't so matter of you just talking and giving presents out from the Wikipedia page that you looked up and maxing your hearts with every single villager, but the villagers like and dislike you and or the other players differently, or the other characters. It's only a single player game, although I know that the kit does support multiplayer, so I've only really gone single player just to keep it a bit simple. I'll attempt to add the stage list that I worked on, because the whole point for this was to create goals. So I knew where I was going, I knew what I was trying to create. The goals were as simple as I wanted to get the postbox over here working, so I could work on postbox. I could get the game able to add items to a postbox. Get the player loot the postbox, so it's a letter, and you could tick that off and go, great, I've got a functional postbox. And obviously a lot of the features in the game, like the monsters, the quests and things, I wasn't coding them, but I was just testing them to make sure that they did what I wanted. I wanted to have, for example, static quest items. This is essentially an NPC that's turned into a box and had all his animations ripped out. So I've confirmed that I can have like a bulletin board or whatever. And obviously guys like this, I wanted to confirm that the stores worked and how they worked, whether that would work for the game. I really wanted to be able to have limited items, which this doesn't support, so it's something that I'll need to think about in the next stages. So essentially, what have I added in? We have NPCs. NPCs follow a schedule based on behavior trees. This guy over here that looks identical to that one, he actually has a schedule. He has a weekly schedule from Monday to Friday. He will wander from one point to another point, stop, and then I think at about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning wander over to this point. He has another function in him, and he will notice me from a certain angle. He'll notice the player. If he is friendly enough with me, he will wave and give me a random greeting. So I just wanted to confirm that all worked. He's already seen me and greeted me off screen, so he won't do it again today. But we'll see that a bit later. I wanted to code buildings that could be placed automatically by the game on startup. So this mailbox is in fact a building entity, and this tent over here, which is how you sleep and start the game day, is also a building entity. So they can be destroyed by the player, picked up and then placed somewhere else. So essentially the player has a list of buildings when they start the game, and there are a list of spots in the game, and if you have a building for a spot, it will place it when your new character starts. So a mountaineer character such as this one has a tent and a little post box, and some other characters might have a house somewhere else in the map with a bit more different starting abilities, different starting fields, etc., etc. So obviously with a farming game, we need to be able to plant crops. So we have the ability to put grow lots down and to plant seeds in the grow lot. That's another example of an interface. There's a lot of different interfaces, such as the crops, the tent, and livestock. Whoops, I went to sleep. Has a different style. Where's our NPC? I can get him to wave to us now. Yep, he sees us for the first time. Good morning, and he does the victory dance because that's the only animation I could find. So grow lots have a different kind of highlight like this, and an E key shows what they've got. So we're still mucking around a bit just to try and figure it out. So grow lots have various stages. If I wait a few more days, some little green will appear, then another stage, then a third stage which you can harvest from, or a fourth stage. They support water, fertilizer, and insect loads. So if it's raining or if you've got irrigation, the water level will change, etc., etc. The plants have a variety of stages or a variety of weights and growth days. So these seeds might take 14 days to grow and require a growth level of 300 before they crop, whatever it is, and they will increase the growth weight 10 a day, or minus a certain amount if it's not wet enough, or plus if it's got fertilizer, etc., etc. So the other aspect, obviously, for these games are harvestables. Now the axe is glowing pink because of I was testing refining out, and I've discovered since it's very, very dark, sometimes it's easy to keep the glowy pink axe. So harvestables have been expanded a little bit above beyond the kit. Trees fall down, loot explodes in a loot shower, which is a little floaty and then vacuums up from a certain distance. If I run away fast enough, it might stay there. Anyway, there's various stages of trees. The trees grow depending on their seasons. There's 4 seasons in a leap day. So boom, these trees just go away. Oh, sometimes they fall over. The trees will fall over away from the player. It's very basic, and I don't really know if I've tried a few things. I tried physics animations for this, so basically having a physics onto a rigid body, and it worked sometimes, and then occasionally it was like you were yeeting the tree across the map at an Olympic caber toss, so it bounced off the floaty bits of wood. So I don't know, eventually I just turned it into an animation, and I have 4 animations, and I just blend them so that they face away from the player. It seemed to work okay. Now there's a few other harvestables around this map. One you won't see, mushrooms, because it's the wrong season for them, but when I think autumn comes along they will appear. And there's also flowers, which have a random spawn. They will appear and then disappear after a few days, and there are none visible. Great. Anyway, there's some flowers, but you can't pick anywhere because I forgot to attach the harvest loot vacuum to them. Sounds were a little bit off there, as you can hear. This is more log splitting than wood cutting. I just grabbed some random sounds. Initially I grabbed something called, I don't know, UI Sound 53, and it sounded like a mating yeti enthusiastically exclaiming his joy. My wife started asking me what the hell I was doing in the office alone at night, so I found something different. As funny as that was, it's really great when you're testing something 5,000 times. We needed livestock, of course. Now, which one of those icons is livestock? That one. Nope, that's not livestock. That one. No, that's a fireplace. That one's livestock. There we go. So, we've got chicken coops. And did I buy some chickens? I did. I bought some chickens. So, we bought ourselves some chickens. It says it's a live chicken, which I can then add to my coop. Boom. I think this coop supports 4 chickens. The chickens are monster entities with a behavior tree attached to them. They'll wander around. They have a schedule, morning and night. They'll come back to the coop at night and then go back into the coop at a certain time. I think it's dusk. They will wander and occasionally eat. There's some free mesh entity thing that I found. There we go. They'll occasionally eat. And one of the things I wanted to test was whether I could create a skill that they would respond to. So they all come rushing over to me and eat the grain that I've just put onto the ground. And the little hearts show that they've gained friendship levels. The coop. Let's go to sleep and get them to lay some eggs overnight. So there's a wonderful, nice particle system telling them that their coop has eggs in it. That's a campfire. Now that took me surprisingly a long time to get working, because before I got the loot vacuuming system, it turned out I was spawning very small, very grey, very tiny little eggs underneath the coop, and I spent 2 days wondering why the eggs weren't being spawned until I realised that they were there all along. Did I get some wood? Yes, if I have some wood. This is just your standard campfire from the kit, but it does have an active light on the fire, flickering light. There's a bit of a system involved which keeps the shadows down to a minimum, so I think it's got like a control system in place so that it only has about 10 shadows maximum, or 10 light sources producing shadows around the player. So it's got a few features like that in it. The chickens aren't all that intelligent, basically as intelligent as my chickens at home, but the behavior trees can really expand that. I mean, they're monster entities, we can do much more with them. I think the one thing that they do is if a chicken sees the food that I've just put down, they will tell nearby chickens that might be outside of the food radius range that there is food available, so you get the sort of delayed response, which doesn't work perfectly, I think, because I have some of the distances a bit out. But yeah, the chicken will see food and then tell another chicken there is food, and they will come rushing along. See, that one of the furthest should have come rushing along, but he decided to eat there and then on the spot, so that's probably just a bug. Now, of course, the seasons, we've got 4 seasons. Seasons differentiate, well, they have different weather patterns, more storms and rain during spring. They also have different sunrises and sunsets. Whether that's going to work in the long run, so winter has a later sunrise and spring and summer has an earlier sunrise. I don't know whether that's going to work, because you saw how dark it was, and it's 9 o'clock now. It's the first time we've been able to see anything, which is why I kept the pink axe. So we'll see how that goes. But crops grow differently in different seasons. Some will can or cannot be planted in seasons. Now, the other thing I wanted to make sure that I could do was skills. So I want to be able to sure that any skill could do anything that I wanted. So I've got a skill to make it rain. This would be a spell in game. I want to make it rain. Have a spell, use mana, which also I've got a lot of it because I wanted to test. But mana drops. It's not really mana. Call it energy in this game. Spells use energy. Harvesting trees uses energy. Feeding the chickens uses energy. That's your defining limit for the day's activities, like most of these games. Somebody also put a nice teleport skill in onto the forums. Maybe that was the rain skill. Maybe that's the teleport skill. I don't have very good icons yet. There we go. So we can teleport, which is very cute. So I'm happy that the skills can do anything I could really want. Most of this stuff is, obviously combat, tributes, quest, control, party, items. I don't know party, but most of the stuff is come free with the kit, and I was just testing to make sure that I knew how to use it. There's a few things like this post box required a great deal of core change, simply because essentially it's a storage like any other storage boxes. But in order to change the contents from code without the player doing it, it's essentially expecting a multiplayer environment where the player opens the box as the first step. Lots of players then get, well, not notified, but all the players that have the box open are in a list. So if somebody adds and removes, everyone in the list that's looking at the box will see those items added and removed, and then you close the box afterwards, you remove yourself. And the open and close only work if you're near to the box, which of course didn't help if I wanted to add in to change things in the background during your night's sleep. So I had to do a fair bit of core changes to that to get that working. You can see how dark it is at 6 o'clock. We've got decent skies and suns. We've got more eggs. Boing. That's eggs. You can actually see them. I made them huge and white because it really annoyed me. That bug took me days to figure out why I couldn't see the damn eggs. So essentially, that's basically all the features, I suppose. There might be a few more here and there that I haven't thought of. The next step for this will be stage 2, which is creating a small mini playable game with these features. Couple of NPCs with full schedules, villages with full schedules, couple of monsters. I mean, I'm happy with the livestock, that's fine. I'll put some more chickens in. I'll get all the equipment, the tools up to tier 1 and 2, and methods to actually get those items. So some kilns and forges and a couple of rocks around that we can harvest, a few monsters and a few dungeons and a few quests, and then at that point just see what's missing. I mean, I certainly have a list of things that are missing already for stage 3, like fishing, which I Didn't code because I really don't like the fishing in most of those games, but it probably needs it. Well, it certainly does need it. There we go. We've got some very small little pumpkins growing. So we certainly need the fishing in there. And there's a few other things. It's mostly refactoring. So if the user interface will need to be looked at. What works, what doesn't. Radial menu or a pop-up like that. I don't know. Or just something like this with a more complicated pop-up box. Haven't quite worked it out yet. We'll work through them when we play. So there's a few other things I need to look into. I've only got a very basic quest or chat graph for this orc, and already when you start typing text into a title in it, the text comes up slower than a 300 baud modem. I mean, it's like really slow. So I'm a bit worried that these guys will need 20 or so conversations per season, and then they will want to have extra levels per friendship level. So if you get more friendly, they will have more things to say to the player, different ways of saying it. If you become an enemy, they'll have different things to say. So even if I split up into multiple graphs, I'm a bit worried that it'll be a bit slow. So I did look at other external assets, but because the kit also embeds the quests and the shops and everything into this, which is nice to have, I would need to code all of that in there, or at least integrate the sort of the shops with the dialogue assets. So I don't know. At the moment, we'll see if it works enough with the demo, and we'll see how we go. So beyond that, stage 3 is another code pass, updating and changing anything that didn't work, adding anything that we missed, and then stage 4 is coding. I think stage 4 is actually the graphic pass on stage 4, which will then update all the user interface and choose which graphics we're going to stick with. Probably not these. I haven't quite figured out what nice characters there are. Stage 5, finish the coding, finish the game itself. So that's basically it. The next thing I was going to do, however, wasn't to do with this. A couple of people asked about the behavior trees, so I'll just take the behavior tree tutorial that I've got and some of the trees and just wrap it up with some examples into an add-on so that people can use it. And it works pretty well, linking the behavior designer with NPCs, with monster entities. These guys aren't using the standard kit wander behavior. They're using behavior tree. And so is this guy over here. He'll notice me and wave if he hasn't done so yet, which he obviously has done today. And they can do a few other things there. It's quite powerful. It's definitely worth it for an AI. And that's about it. So, I'll just get the guy to wave to us. Victory dance, because it's the only animation I could find.